On vacation in Tahiti, family started complaining because I didn't do what they wanted. So I flew away and left them there without money. I was laughing and it was incredible. I'll be the first to admit that I may have overcompensated, but when I got my big promotion at work, I wanted to do something special for my family. I'm the oldest, so there's always been this unspoken expectation that if I made it, I'd take care of everyone. And this year, I really did make it. I landed a 6-figure salary, shattered my goals, and even started dabbling in investing. So I thought, why not celebrate? A week in paradise sounded perfect. I chose Tahiti because it had something for everyone: pristine beaches, luxury spas, amazing snorkeling, and killer sunsets. It wasn't the most extravagant trip, but it was very expensive. I paid for everything: flights, accommodations, activities, food. I even invited my parents and my twin sisters, Isabella and Jessica. They're 22, fresh out of college, and still figuring things out, so I figured they could use a break. When I first pitched the idea, they were all on board. My mom even said, "You're such a sweetheart for taking care of us like this." My dad nodded in agreement, which is practically an emotional outburst for him. Isabella and Jessica were thrilled. They started sending me TikToks of places in Tahiti they wanted to visit, like the overwater bungalows and dolphin tours. A month later, we were on a flight to paradise. I felt like I was doing something good, paying them back for all the times they had supported me, or pretended to. Tahiti was everything I'd hoped it would be. The water was crystal clear, the food was incredible, and the hotel, while not the Ritz-Carlton, was pretty damn nice. For the first 2 days, everything seemed great. My sisters were having a blast swimming, and I even managed to get my dad to crack a smile when we saw dolphins. But on the 3rd day, the cracks started to show. My mom and dad pulled me aside after dinner and dropped the bomb. "You know, it's nice here," my mom started, "but we really wanted to go to Hawaii." I blinked, not sure if I heard her right. "Hawaii?" "Yes," she said. "The Johnsons went there last month. Your father and I were really hoping you'd plan something like that. It would have been more exciting for us." "Exciting?" I repeated. "We're in damn Tahiti. Look around." But my mom shrugged and said, "Well, it's not the same." The Johnsons said the luau's in Hawaii were amazing. And they got to see Pearl Harbor. At first I thought it was a joke, but the more they talked, the clearer it became they weren't thrilled with the trip. I began to wonder if I had misread the room. Still, I brushed it off. I wasn't going to let a little grumbling ruin the vacation. Or so I thought. It only got worse from there. The next morning I tried to reset the mood. We had a whale watching tour booked, and I figured once we got out on the water, everyone would loosen up. Isabella and Jessica were still buzzing with excitement, so at least I had them on my side. The tour was incredible: whales breaching, the guide telling cool facts, the whole thing. I kept looking at my parents, waiting for them to say something positive, but they were mostly silent. My mom finally muttered, "Well, Hawaii has dolphins too." By lunchtime, the tension was thick. As my sisters raved about the morning, my mother began to list everything she thought was missing. "No pineapple plantations," she said, shaking her head. "No hula dancers. And where are the volcanoes? Hawaii has all that." My father chimed in. And the Johnsons said the shopping in Hawaii was incredible. "There's nothing like it here." I couldn't believe it. I mean, sure, Tahiti wasn't Hawaii, but it wasn't supposed to be. The whole point was to experience something different. But apparently I hadn't lived up to her expectations. That night, we went to a fancy restaurant that I'd booked months in advance. It was right on the beach, with live music and a menu of local specialties. I thought maybe this would finally win them over. Nope. My mother ordered fish and immediately complained that it was too exotic. My dad said his steak wasn't cooked the way he liked it. Meanwhile, Isabella and Jessica were having the time of their lives, taking pictures of their food and the sunset. After dinner, my parents cornered me in the lobby of the hotel. "You know," my mom said, "if you're doing so well now, Maybe you could help out a little more." "What do you mean?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "Well," she said, "your sisters still live with us, and we're getting older. It's time for them to have a place of their own. Maybe you could buy them a house or at least some nice apartments so we can finally have some peace and quiet." My father nodded. "And a new car wouldn't hurt either. That old Honda's falling apart." I just stared at her. Was this really happening? I'd already spent a small fortune on this trip and now they were asking me for more? "I can't do that," I said. "I've had a good year, but I'm not a millionaire. I have expenses, investments. I can't just buy houses and cars like they're nothing." My mother's face hardened. "So you're saying you're too cheap to help your family?" "What?" I said. "That's not what I'm saying at all." But she didn't stop. "You want to surprise us with this vacation, but you won't help your sisters? What kind of son are you?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They went on, digging up every perceived slight from my childhood. My father even said, "You've always been a disappointment, and I guess some things never change." That was it. Something inside me snapped. "You know what?" I said. "Good luck enjoying the rest of your vacation without me." And with that, I turned and walked away. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind kept replaying everything my parents had said. The insults, the guilt trips, it was like they'd been saving it up for years, just waiting for the right moment to unload. By the time the sun came up, I'd made up my mind. I was done. I wasn't going to spend another minute, let alone another dollar, on a family that clearly didn't appreciate anything I had done. I packed my bags in record time and went straight to the front desk. I told them I needed to check out early and book the next flight home. It wasn't until I was sitting in the airport lounge sipping coffee that it hit me. I'd just left my family in Tahiti. They had 4 days left, and I hadn't left them a penny. Not for meals, not for activities, not even for the cab ride back to the airport. I laughed out loud. Not because it made me feel good, I didn't, not entirely, but because the whole situation was so absurd. Here I was, the supposed disappointment, and yet I'd paid for the whole trip. And now I was the bad guy for not doing more? The flight home was blissfully quiet. No passive-aggressive comments, no guilt trips. Just me, a movie, and the knowledge that I had stood up for myself for the first time in years. When I landed, I turned on my phone and was immediately bombarded with messages. From my sisters. "Where are you? Did you leave? Mom and Dad are freaking out. What's going on? Please tell me this is a joke." And from my mom. "How could you do this to us? We're stranded here with no money. What were you thinking? You're so selfish. You've ruined this trip." I didn't answer any of them. I figured they could work it out. At worst, they could call a friend or use a credit card. They weren't helpless, no matter how much they wanted to act that way. Over the next few days, I received occasional updates from my sisters. Apparently, they were making the best of it, lounging by the pool, splurging on room service, and charging everything to the hotel. By the time they flew back, the hotel bill was astronomical. Isabella and Jessica had gone on a shopping spree, and my parents had racked up charges for every little thing. 4 days later, they were all back home, and that's when the real drama began. When I got home, I knew it was only a matter of time before there was a reckoning. Sure enough, 4 days after returning from Tahiti, my mom called and asked me to come over. Her tone was sweet, but I could hear the storm brewing underneath. I debated ignoring her, but I figured it was better to face the music and get it over with. When I walked into their house, my mom and dad were sitting on the couch, looking like they'd been rehearsing this confrontation all day. Isabella and Jessica were there too, scrolling through their phones and trying to look uninterested. "Sit down," my mom said, gesturing to the chair. "Okay," I said, crossing my arms. "What's this about? What's the point?" my dad barked. "You left us in a foreign country with no money. You had credit cards," I shot back. "That's not the point," my mother cut in. "We had to call our friends to wire us money just to pay the hotel bill. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? Oh, I can imagine, I said, trying not to laugh. And your sisters, she continued, were left with no spending money. How could you do that to them? Wait, I said, turning to Isabella and Jessica. You two went shopping, didn't you? And ordered room service every day? Jessica shrugged. We figured you'd cover that. You invited us, remember? I couldn't believe it. They didn't even see what they'd done wrong. I spent tens of thousands on this trip, I said. Tens of thousands. And you all complained the whole time because it wasn't Hawaii. Then you called me cheap and selfish for not buying houses and cars and God knows what else. What did you expect me to do? We expected you to act like family, my father said. Really? I snapped. Because family doesn't call you a disappointment or a loser when you try your best. Family doesn't treat you like an ATM machine. There was a tense silence, and then my mother said, We just thought you'd want to help us. You've always been so generous. That's the problem, I said. I've been too generous. I gave you everything I could on this trip, and it still wasn't enough. So I left. And honestly, I don't regret it. My dad slammed his hand down on the coffee table. You think you're better than us now, don't you? Just because you make a little money. I don't think I'm better, I said. I just think I deserve some respect. And if you can't give me that, then I don't need to be here. I got up to leave, but then my mom hit me with something I didn't see coming. Wait, she said. Before you go, we need to show you something. She pulled out her phone and started scrolling, then handed it to me. On the screen was a picture of a brand new Mercedes parked in her driveway. Are you kidding me? I said. We had to get it, my dad said. The Honda was falling apart, and since you wouldn't help, we used the money your grandma left us. The thing is, my grandmother had left that money to all of us, including me, Isabella, and Jessica. It was supposed to be split evenly, but obviously it wasn't. I stared at the picture of the Mercedes on my mom's phone, my jaw clenching. Grams left that money for all of us, I said, my voice cold. Well, we needed it, my father replied. You're doing fine without it anyway. Why shouldn't we use it? Before I could answer, Isabella chimed in. Actually, that's not the whole story. She looked at Jessica, who looked uncomfortable. What do you mean? I asked, narrowing my eyes. Isabella hesitated, then said, Mom and Dad didn't just use Graham's money for the car. They also used some of it to pay the hotel bill after you left. What? Jessica jumped in, obviously upset. We only found out because Isabella overheard them on the phone with the bank. They emptied out almost the entire account. Wait a minute, I said, trying to process this. The account was supposed to be divided equally. You two didn't get anything? Jessica shook her head. Nope. And when we asked, they said we didn't need the money right now and that it was for the greater good of the family. I turned back to my parents, angry. So let me get this straight. You called me cheap, insulted me for not throwing more money at you, and then stole from your own daughters? It wasn't stealing, my mother snapped. We're their parents. We know what's best for them. Isabella crossed her arms. Yes, because a luxury car is exactly what we needed. Before I could say anything else, there was a loud knock at the door. My dad groaned and got up to answer it, muttering something about how it was probably another neighbor who wanted to check out the car. But when he opened the door, it wasn't a neighbor. It was a man in a suit holding a clipboard. Mr. Bennett? The man asked, addressing my father. Yes? The man handed him an envelope. You've been served. What is this? My father demanded, tearing open the envelope. His face turned pale as he read the papers inside. What's going on? I asked, standing up. My dad didn't answer, so I grabbed the papers out of his hands and skimmed through them. It was a lawsuit. Apparently, the Johnsons, the same neighbors my mom had been so obsessed with, were suing my parents for fraud. What the hell is this? I asked, waving the papers around. My mother buried her face in her hands. It's a misunderstanding, she said. Really? Because it says here that you convinced her to invest in a bogus real estate deal and then pocketed the money. My father finally spoke up. It wasn't bogus. It just didn't work out the way we thought it would. Jessica burst out laughing. So let me get this straight. You blew through Grandma's money, scammed the neighbors, and now you're being sued? And you still had the audacity to call him cheap? She pointed at me. For the first time in my life, I saw my parents speechless. Oh, it gets better, Isabella said, pulling out her phone. I did some digging after we got back from Tahiti. It turns out that Mom and Dad refinanced the house last year without telling anyone. That's how they covered their expenses. What? I asked, stunned. Yep, Isabella said, scrolling through her phone. And they're already in default. So unless you want to bail them out, they're probably going to lose the house. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The same people who had spent the past week berating me for not doing enough were up to their eyeballs in debt, using every trick in the book to stay afloat. And yet, somehow, I was the selfish one. I stood up and shook my head. You know what? This isn't my problem. You dug your own grave, and I'm not going to save you. As I headed for the door, my father called after me. If you leave now, don't bother coming back. I turned and smiled. That's the best thing I've heard all day. With that, I left, feeling strangely free for the first time in years. Driving home after the confrontation, I replayed it all in my head. The insults, the demands, the lies, it all made sense now. My parents' constant demands and manipulations weren't just about money. It was about control. They treated me like a safety net for years, and when I stopped playing along, the cracks in their facade showed. For a few days I kept my distance, ignoring calls and messages. Isabella and Jessica texted me a few times, mostly to apologize for not speaking up sooner. It wasn't their fault, but it was clear that they were starting to see the bigger picture. During that time, I thought about why things had spiraled the way they had. I'd spent so long trying to prove myself to my parents, hoping that if I accomplished enough, they'd finally treat me with respect. But the truth was, no amount of money or success would ever be enough for them. I decided it was time to draw the line. The next weekend, I invited Isabella and Jessica over for lunch. They looked hesitant when they arrived, probably expecting me to lecture them. Instead, I told them the truth. Look, I said, I can't change Mom and Dad, and I'm not going to keep trying. But I do care about you, and I want to help you get out of this house. They exchanged surprised looks. What do you mean? Jessica asked. I mean, I'm going to help you move into your own place. A rental, nothing fancy, but something where you can start fresh. You deserve a chance to figure out your lives without Mom and Dad breathing down your necks. They were stunned. Isabella teared up and Jessica just stared at me, speechless. You'd really do this for us? Isabella asked. Of course, I said. But there's a catch. This is a one-time thing. I'll help you get started, but after that, you're on your own. It's time for all of us to be on our own. They nodded, both looking more relieved than I'd ever seen them. Over the next few weeks, I helped them find an affordable 2-bedroom apartment not far from where I lived. I covered the security deposit and first month's rent, and even threw in some basics like furniture and kitchen supplies. It felt good, but it also felt final. This wasn't about tying them to me with another obligation. It was about giving them the freedom I'd fought so hard for. On move-in day, as we unpacked boxes, Jessica asked, Why are you doing all this? I mean, after everything. I hesitated, then decided to tell them the truth. Because I'm starting my own family now, and I need to focus on that. But I also want to make sure that you two are okay. They both froze. Wait, what? Your own family? Isabella asked. I smiled. Yes. I've been seeing someone for a while. Her name is Rachel. We're actually engaged. Their jaws dropped. You're kidding, Jessica said. Why didn't you tell us? Because I didn't want Mom and Dad to get involved and ruin it before it even started, I admitted. They laughed, probably because they knew exactly what I meant. As we finished unpacking, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. My parents could keep their drama and their bad choices. I was done trying to clean up their messes. From now on, my energy was going to the people who mattered most: Rachel, Isabella, Jessica, and the future I was finally building for myself. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be.